Let's roll back to 2013. You're a productivity app and competing against Microsoft, Google, and Evernote. Basically, every tech giant on the planet. Your strategy? No sales team, no ads. Just let people use your product and hope they tell their friends. Sounds a little insane, right? That's exactly what Notion did. And today they're valued at $10 billion with $500 million in revenue. They have 100 million users. And here's the kicker. Over 50% of Fortune 500 companies use Notion, including Amazon, Nike, Pixar, and Uber. Not because a sales rep cold called them, because one employee bought in, showed their team, and it spread like wildfire from the bottom up. Today, we're breaking down Notion's bottom-up growth strategy. We'll look at the problem they solved, the marketing insight that changed things for them, how they executed it, the science behind why it works, and most importantly, how you can apply this to your business. Let's go. Here's what the productivity software market looked like when Notion launched. If you wanted enterprise software, you dealt with enterprise sales. You had to convince the CIO. You sat through demos, you negotiated contracts, you waited months for procurement to approve the purchase. Then, you had to get employees to actually use the thing. This top-down model worked great for software companies, billion-dollar deals, predictable revenue, but it stunk for users. They were stuck with tools they didn't choose, that didn't fit their workflow, that they barely used. Meanwhile, individual users were drowning in tool chaos. You had Evernote for notes, Trello for tasks, Google Docs for collaboration, Airtable for databases. You were context switching between 5 different apps just to get your work done. Notion solved both problems. Enterprise buying was broken, and knowledge workers needed a single workspace they could do everything. But here's the real problem they identified. In a world where employees could download consumer-grade apps in seconds, why were companies still buying software like it was 1995? Notion made a radical bet. Instead of building a sales team to sell to executives, they built a product so good that individual users would bring it to their companies themselves. They bet on what's called product-led growth. The product itself becomes the marketing. The product itself becomes the sales team. But here's the specific insight that made it work. Make the product irresistible to individual users first, then make it dispensable to teams. Most enterprise software stops at the top and forces its way down. Notion started at the bottom and pulled its way up. A designer at Nike starts using Notion for personal projects. She shows her team. The team switches. Other teams notice. Before you know it, Nike's IT department is asking, what is this Notion thing everyone's using? That's bottom-up adoption. One user becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, 100 becomes enterprise-wide. And Notion's pricing model reinforced this. Free forever for individuals. Cheap for small teams. Only when you need enterprise features do you pay enterprise prices. By then, you're hooked. Here's how Notion executed this marketing playbook in 4 steps. First, they obsessed over product. Notion built a workplace that could morph into whatever you needed. Notes, databases, wikis, project management, all in one place with a beautiful, intuitive interface. They didn't just build features. They built building blocks that users could combine however they wanted. Second, they weaponized templates. Notion created a template marketplace where users could share their workflows. Need a content calendar? There's a template. CRM? Template. Project tracker? Template. This did 2 things. It made Notion easier to adopt, and it turned users into creators who had a vested interest in the platform. By 2024, template downloads exceeded 1.5 million per month. Every template was a growth vector. Third, they built a community, not just a user base. Notion created a certification program for consultants. They built a subreddit with over 1 million members. They had ambassadors who genuinely loved the product and taught others how to use it. When enterprises adopted Notion, they often hired these community members as consultants. The community became an extension of customer success and sales, without Notion paying a dime. Fourth, they made virality inherent into the product. Every time you share a Notion page, you're demonstrating the product. Your colleague sees how easy it is to collaborate. They think, I could use this. They sign up. That's demonstration virality in action. And here's the brilliant part. Notion only added the sales team after they had a massive bottom-up adoption. In 2023, their customer ratio shifted from 90% individual users to 50% enterprise. That's when they brought in sales to accelerate what was already happening organically. Let's quickly talk about why this works psychologically. There's a phenomenon called social proof, and as marketers know, it's one of the most powerful forces in consumer behavior. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Student Research titled The Effects of Social Proof Marketing Tactics on Nudging Consumer Purchases found that positive product reviews significantly increase purchase likelihood. But here's what's interesting about the finding. Peer recommendations influenced over 90% of B2B buying decisions, according to the research cited in multiple consumer behavior studies. When you see your colleague using a tool and loving it, you don't need a sales pitch. You're already sold. That's social proof, working at a psychological level. Robert Cialdini established this principle in his book, Influence, Science, and Practice, identifying social proof as one of the 6 key principles of persuasion. But there's a second principle at play here: reciprocity and utility. Research published in the journal Decision Support Systems in 2020 on social influence tactics in e-commerce onboarding found that when products provide immediate utility-based value, users are more likely to advocate for them. Notion gave users a free, powerful tool that solved their problems. Users felt they got value first, so they were more willing to reciprocate by sharing it with their teams. And there's a third mechanism: network effects meeting viral growth. According to research from OpenView Partners, products with network effects become more valuable as more people use them. But as the venture capital firm NFX explains, viral effects and network effects are different. Viral effects drive new user acquisition, while network effects drive value and defensibility. Notion engineered both. The more people on Notion, the more templates, the more integrations, and the more valuable it became. And every shared workplace was a viral loop pulling in new users. This is why product-led growth works. It taps into fundamental human psychology. We trust peers over salespeople. We reciprocate value, and we conform to what our colleagues are doing. Now, let's make this actionable for you. Here's how to apply Notion's bottom-up playbook to your business in 5 ways. First, build for end users, not buyers. If your product makes individual employees' lives better, they'll bring it to their companies. Stop optimizing for the person with a budget. Start optimizing for the person who actually uses your product. 2, make your product inherently viral. Every feature should have a share component where when the product is shared, the receiving party doesn't just get a, check this out. They get actual value from it. Notion did this with shared pages, where the person who gets the invite gets value in the form of information and an easier way to collaborate. Calendly did this with meeting links and saves the other person time, not having to go back and forth figuring out a mutual time for a meeting. Loom does this with video. You get the idea. Build sharing into the core experience of the product. 3, create a free tier that delivers real value. Your free tier shouldn't be a neutered version of the real product. It should be genuinely useful. You're not losing revenue. You're creating future enterprise customers who are learning to love your product right now. 4, build community, not just customers. Identify your power users. Give them a platform. Create a certification program, a template marketplace, a subreddit. Turn your users into evangelists who teach others for free. And 5, let adoption create pull, not push. Don't force your way into enterprises with aggressive sales. Let individual adoption create demand. Then, when IT comes asking, you're ready for enterprise features. You're not selling, you're fulfilling existing demand. And here's the reality check. This only works if your product is genuinely great. You can't hack your way to bottom-up growth with a mediocre product. Notion spent years perfecting the user experience before they saw explosive growth. But if your product delivers real value to individuals, bottom-up growth gives you enterprise adoption without the enterprise sales machinery and having to raise tens of millions right out of the gate. Notion proved you don't need a sales army to conquer the enterprise. You need a product individual users love, viral mechanisms built into the core experience, and a community that advocates for you. They went from nearly shutting down to a $10 billion valuation by flipping the traditional B2B playbook upside down. Your marketing move? If you're building a B2B software company, stop asking, how do we sell it to enterprises? Start asking, how do we make individual employees love our product so much they pull us into their companies? Your marketing move.